Hello everybody, welcome back to a brand new video. My name is Carburetor and today we're going to be looking at the text-to-speech module in Python 3. For this tutorial I'm going to be using Windows 10, the typical idle integrated development environment, and this is compatible on Mac OS and Linux as well, so you can just follow this tutorial. However, keep in mind it may sound slightly different, and I'll go into a little more detail about that in just a moment. Now, to begin with, you have to make sure you have your Python path set and that you've got Python properly installed. If you don't have that, I'll leave a link in the description for a video that'll show you how to do all of that. Now, what we're going to start with, if you're on Windows, you want to click Start and then R, which will bring up the Run command, and you can type in CMD. Alternatively, you can just hit the Windows button and then type in CMD again, and it'll do the exact same thing. Once you open the command prompt, you want to type in pip install and then py win32, like that, no capitals, and then hit run. Now for me this says the requirement already satisfied. That's because I already have it installed. However, if you do not, it'll come up with some progress bars and then it should install it fine. The reason that we have this is because this package is relied on for use with the Python text-to-speech module. And speaking of which, we can actually install it now by doing again pip install, but this time we're going to type in pyttsx3. If we hit run, you can see I already have requirement already satisfied, and as you can see here, it mentions that pypi win32 is already satisfied. The reason being is that we just installed it here. Once we've done that, we want to click start again, or just open up the idle application. Remember, you can use Atom or PowerShell for this, and then you want to just type in import pyttsx3. Now, if you receive no error message, then that means that it is imported fine, and we can start working on it. In this case, it has, so we can click Ctrl N, and then open up a new window, and we can start working on our program. So we want to type in pyttsx3, import it, and we're going to get started straight away. So this first line is basically just importing the module into the program, and then what we want to do is below that we want to type in engine equals pyttsx3 dot init and then a pair of parentheses. The reason that we're doing that is because this module requires a function to actually run it. The reason we're declaring it to an engine variable is because it just makes it look a lot cleaner rather than having multiple sectioned up functions. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the engine variable, so I can kind of use it in that manner as a metaphor for it. Also, it matches the online documentation. Now, what we're going to want to do first is we're effectively going to load the fuel into the engine, and what I mean by that is we're going to type in engine, or whatever variable you've set up here, and then we're going to dot say, and then in parentheses we want to type in hello world, or whatever text you want to be said. Now if I run this, and then I save it to an appropriate location, as you can hear, nothing is said. The reason for that is because we've put the fuel into the engine, but we haven't actually run the engine itself. So for that to happen, what we're going to do is we're going to do engine.run and wait, two parentheses, click F5, run, and hit enter.
Hello world.
And as you can hear, it has said something to us. Similarly, like we've passed a value through to the function here, we can instead change the say to a variable, so let's say hello world. And then rather than typing in hello world into these brackets here, we can just put in say, and that just demonstrates it.
Hello world.
And as you can hear, it works. Now if that's all you're wanting from this tutorial, then that's it. You just need to follow this, and you need to make sure that all of this code here comes below the engine line here, and that is effectively it. You can of course actually run through multiple statements. So for example, if I want to say then engine.say apples, and then run it.
Hello world. Apples.
And as you can hear, it says that too. You can pass through multiple values before actually you run the engine, just like if you added more and more petrol to an engine. And from there, what we can continue doing is we can actually add in a couple more features. We can change the rate at which it speaks, the volume which it speaks, and the voice it speaks with. Now, as I mentioned, on the Windows on the Windows platform, the voices don't sound much different. However, on the Linux and Mac OS platforms, the female and male voice may sound very different. So, however, in the retrospect, it is the exact same code. So what we're going to do to start is we're just going to get rid of these few statements here. And let's just replace our engine.save statement with hello world. That should do fine. And what I'm going to do is the first thing I want to do is that I want to declare what the rate is actually referring to. Now, for the rate and the volume, you do not need to put in this line, and I'm going to explain that in just a minute. However, for now, we're just going to type in engine.getProperty, and then we want to type in the parentheses in quotation marks rate, and this basically is the computer loading the getProperty function of engine, which is of course the getProperty function of pyttsx3.init, and we're putting that into the rate variable. That's because the program is then going to use the rate variable as kind of a framework, as it were. Now what we're going to do after we've done that is we're going to do engine.setProperty. Keep in mind you want a capital P, and then you're going to again put in a quotation marks rate, and then you're going to want any value that is an integer. For this we're going to say 100. I'm going to close brackets, and then we're just going to run it again.
Hello world.
And as you can hear, it's actually speaking a lot slower. It's speaking half as slow even, because the normal rate for speech is 200. Now, the great thing is we can then actually just repeat this, and we can change these two words to volume. So we can change the variable identifier to volume here. And then inside the quotation marks, we can change that also to volume, because these two functions are very similar. The only difference is when you're typing the engine.setProperty, you of course want to change this rate to volume. However, also this value here has to be any float or real number, as it were, from 0.0 to 1.0. So if I set it to 0.5, it's going to play at half volume. So if I run that now,
hello world.
As you can hear, it does in fact speak it at half the volume. Now, the reason that we've done these getProperty statements is because this is a good example for what we're going to do next. When you are changing the rate and the volume, you do not need to have these lines. This was only for demonstration purposes. However, you do need this line if you are going to change the voice you want to use. So next what we want to do is we're going to want to select a variable name, and it does need to be voices, or it needs to be a specific variable name that you're going to know. Because then you are going to type in engine dot again getProperty, and in the quotation marks you want to put voices. However, the reason this is important is because of the next line that we're going to put in. So you're going to type in engine.setProperty. Again, we're just going to do in quotation marks voice with no S. And then here is where it's important. Whatever variable name you've put here, you have to match in this next part. You want to do voices if you've set the variable name to voices. If you set the variable name to tone, then change it to tone. Then in the square brackets, you want to put 0 for a female voice and 1 for a male voice. However, just now I'm going to explain what the difference is on Windows, and then after that you want to put in .id. Now if I play this,
hello world,
and I'll actually change the volume just a second to back to 1.
hello world.
As you can hear, it sounds the exact same, but then if we change this to 1,
hello world,
it sounds slightly more feminine. The actual difference is very slight on Windows, and the reason for that is because each different platform uses a different speech library, and all that library realistically is basically, if you were to go into an actual library and you were going to have a load of bookshelves in front of you, for each of the syllables that the engine says, it's going to open up a book that says, like, let's say, imagine the book has the syllable on the front of it. It opens it up and it's going to read the demand for how it's going to type in that code, and then it'll be able to say it. Now, continuing on from that, if we play it again,
hello world,
we can of course now change what we want to do. because we've declared all of these different variables. So we've declared the rate, we've declared the volume, and we've declared the voices. Now, as a demonstration, I'm going to delete the volume and rate lines.
Hello world.
And as you can see, it works perfectly fine. However, if I get rid of the voices, as you can see, there is an error. That's because it's not being defined. So that's why voices is the one that you need to use. And that's it. There's nothing complicated about this module. It's actually very simple to do, and I believe you can actually use it offline because it downloads the speech library onto your computer that you have it installed on. And other than that, there's nothing else. Have fun, enjoy using it. In fact, use it with the speech recognition module, because then you could have your computer have a conversation with you, which will be quite interesting to code. Anyway, other than that, guys, I hope you enjoyed watching, and I'll speak to you next time.